They called her the next big thing, a rising star in the fashion world. With her striking beauty, effortless grace, and an undeniable presence in front of the camera, Naomi Carter had everything it took to make it to the top. She was young, ambitious, and ready to take the industry by storm. But behind the glamour and flashing lights, a single mistake would lead her into the hands of a predator. What should have been her big break turned into an unthinkable nightmare, one that she would barely survive. How does a dream so full of promise turn into an inescapable nightmare? What happens when the industry that should elevate young talent becomes a hunting ground for the worst kind of evil? Before we dive into this shocking case, please like and subscribe to our channel for more disturbing tales of deception, exploitation, and survival. Naomi Carter had always known she was meant for something bigger. From the moment she saw Naomi Campbell strut down the runway, she had envisioned herself in the same spotlight, wearing the world's most coveted designs, her name whispered in the same breath as the greats. It wasn't just a dream. It was a destiny she was willing to chase, no matter the sacrifice. Growing up in Baltimore, Naomi learned early on that nothing came easy. Her mother, Patrice, worked long hours to keep a roof over their heads, and there were no silver spoons or shortcuts in their world. But Naomi never let her circumstances define her. She spent hours studying runway shows, practicing her walk in front of a cracked bedroom mirror, and perfecting her poses in thrift store outfits that she made look like designer couture. By 18, she had built a modest but promising portfolio. Her Instagram was carefully curated, high-fashion poses, behind-the-scenes snapshots from local fashion shows, and the occasional candid moment that let her followers see the girl behind the glam. Her following wasn't massive, but it was growing. And in the cutthroat world of modeling, she knew all it took was one opportunity to change everything. That opportunity came in the form of a direct message. Malik Ace Redding slid into her inbox like a dream come true. His profile radiated success. Flawless photos of models in luxury campaigns, high-end runway shows, and pictures of him shaking hands with designers whose names carried weight in the industry. His bio claimed he was a top talent scout for an exclusive agency that specializes in launching fresh faces into the international modeling scene. Naomi had seen scams before. She had heard horror stories of fake agencies and photographers preying on young models, but this felt different. Ace wasn't just some random recruiter. He was followed by well-known industry names, and his profile was verified. "You've got something special," his message read. "The industry is looking for your look right now. If you're serious, I can get you in front of the right people." Naomi's heart pounded as she read his words. This was it. The break she had been waiting for. They exchanged messages back and forth, and every doubt she had slowly faded. He knew his stuff, talking about designers and campaigns like an industry insider. Within days, he made her an offer she couldn't refuse. An all-expenses-paid trip to Miami for an exclusive, private casting for a major European brand. A chance to skip the exhausting cattle calls and go straight to the people who mattered. She barely had time to process the whirlwind of it all. Ace sent over official-looking contracts, flight details, and even put her in touch with a representative from the agency, who assured her that everything was legitimate. It felt too good to be true. But why would a man so well-connected risk his reputation on a scam? When she announced the opportunity on Instagram, her followers erupted with excitement. Messages flooded her DMs, friends congratulating her, aspiring models asking how they could get in too. Even her mother, despite her initial skepticism, couldn't hide her pride. "Just be careful, baby," Patrice had warned, but there was more excitement than fear in her voice. After all, what parent wouldn't want to see their child's dreams come true? So, Naomi packed her best outfits, her highest heels, and her aspirations into a suitcase, ready to step into the life she had always wanted. She had no idea that she was walking straight into a nightmare. Malik Ace Redding had spent years perfecting his craft, not as a talent scout, but as a predator. He was a master of illusion, a man who understood the dreams of young models better than they understood themselves. He spoke their language, knew their struggles, and most importantly, knew how to make them feel special. It was a skill he had honed through manipulation, a game of trust and deceit that had made him nearly untouchable. On the surface, Ace was everything he claimed to be. He had the right connections, the right image, and just enough legitimacy to keep suspicion at bay. But beneath the luxury cars and high-end photo shoots was a much darker operation. One that had left a trail of missing girls in its wake. Some had vanished without a trace, while others were found broken beyond repair, their dreams shattered in ways they could never have imagined. Naomi Carter was his latest target, and she had no idea. The flight to Miami was a dream come true. First-class seating, warm towels, champagne she was too young to drink but was offered anyway. It all felt so real, so official. The ticket had been booked in her name. The details matched everything Ace had promised. Why would she have reason to doubt? But the moment she landed, the first crack in the illusion appeared. The driver who met her at the airport wasn't dressed in the sleek uniform of a luxury chauffeur. He was rougher around the edges, silent, avoiding eye contact, his presence unsettling in a way she couldn't quite put her finger on. The car wasn't the sleek black town car she had expected, but an older SUV with tinted windows. Still, when the driver handed her a phone and Ace's voice came through the other end, her worries eased. Private location, he explained smoothly. High-profile models, exclusive casting. Can't have paparazzi snooping around. It made sense. After all, the modeling world was full of secrecy, exclusivity, and closed-door opportunities. If she wanted to play in the big leagues, she had to trust the process. So she did. As they drove further from the city, Miami's neon lights faded into the darkness of the Everglades. The streets turned to long, empty stretches of road, lined with nothing but trees and shadows. Naomi gripped her phone, glancing at the signal bars. Still strong. No reason to panic. But when they pulled up to the house, something felt wrong. It wasn't a luxury hotel. It wasn't even a modern high-rise apartment. It was a sprawling, secluded rental home. Too quiet, too isolated. A single porch light flickered, barely illuminating the driveway. Naomi hesitated before stepping out of the car, her suitcase suddenly feeling heavier in her grip. Before she could ask questions, the driver handed her the phone again. "Trust me, baby girl." Ace's voice was smooth, almost hypnotic. "It's all part of the experience. This is how the real stars do it. Privacy, exclusivity, this is where the magic happens." Naomi wanted to believe him. That belief would cost her everything. The moment Naomi stepped inside, the trap slammed shut. She barely had time to process the dimly lit hallway, the stale air thick with something rotten, before hands grabbed her from behind. Strong, unrelenting. Her scream barely left her lips before a needle plunged into her arm. A sharp, burning sensation spread through her veins, and then darkness. When she woke, everything was wrong. Her body was heavy, her limbs sluggish, her mouth dry as if she had swallowed dust. The room was small and windowless, the walls stained with things she didn't want to name. Panic clawed at her throat as she tried to move, but her wrists burned, the raw sting of zip ties biting into her skin. Her suitcase was gone. Her phone was gone. The first time the door opened, she thought maybe this was all a mistake. Maybe Ace would walk in, laughing, telling her it was some kind of twisted industry prank. But it wasn't Ace. Two men stood there instead, faceless shadows in the dim light. One held a camera. The other grinned, a sick, knowing grin that made her stomach lurch. She fought, screamed, kicked, but her body was still weak from whatever they had given her. It didn't matter. The moment she resisted, the blows came fast and merciless, fists slamming into her ribs, her face, until the room spun again. They filmed everything. Time became meaningless. The door only opened when they wanted something from her. There were no windows, no way to mark the passing hours, only the crushing weight of isolation. The air smelled of sweat, fear, and something metallic that never quite faded. Sometimes, she heard crying through the walls. Other times, there was silence so thick it made her ears ring. The other girls were there, but they were different. Some had been there for weeks, some months. They were ghosts moving mechanically, eyes empty. Naomi saw what happened to the ones who disobeyed, their screams echoing through the halls before they were dragged away. But she refused to break. Ace visited, always alone, always smug. He never lifted a hand to her, never needed to. His words cut deeper than fists ever could. "You belong to me now," she spat in his face. The next time the door opened, they starved her for 3 days. Still, she refused to break. The hunger gnawed at her, hollow and relentless, but it was nothing compared to the rage burning inside her. She counted the hours by the growl of her stomach, by the sound of footsteps beyond the door, by the quiet sobs of the girl in the next room. On the 3rd day, the door creaked open. A metal tray scraped against the floor. Cold rice, something unidentifiable smeared across the plate. She stared at it, then at the man standing in the doorway, waiting. He expected her to dive for it, to crawl, to give in. Naomi lifted her chin. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. "Suit yourself," he muttered, kicking the tray over before slamming the door shut. She closed her eyes, swallowing the bitterness rising in her throat. The fight wasn't over. She just had to wait. Watch. Find a way out. Because no matter what they did to her, she would not be a ghost. Patrice Carter felt it in her bones. Something was wrong. First, she told herself Naomi was just busy, that the lack of calls, the unanswered texts, the sudden silence could be explained. But when a full day passed with nothing, then 2, then 3, then weeks, the fear settled deep in her gut. She called the agency. "Naomi Carter?" Confusion. Typing in the background. "Ma'am, we have no record of her." Patrice's heart slammed against her ribs. The email, the contract, everything had seemed real. But when she searched again, the website was gone. The Instagram page that had messaged her daughter had vanished overnight. Panic gave way to desperation. Patrice turned to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anywhere people would listen. She posted a picture of Naomi, her last known whereabouts, and a plea. "My daughter is missing. Please help me find her." The post exploded. Thousands shared it, tagging influencers, reporters, and activists. Among them was Jordan Hale, a cyber investigator specializing in trafficking cases. One look at the case and he knew. A reverse search led him to the dark web, a forum known for selling girls. He scoured through encrypted files, scanned endless threads, until he found it. Naomi's face. Battered. Defeated. A live stream in progress. He didn't hesitate. He called the FBI. The raid happened fast. A joint operation between the FBI and Miami PD, officers armed and ready. They stormed the rental house just before dawn, battering down doors, catching men mid-act, mid-sale, mid-monster. Naomi barely registered the shouting, the gunfire, the chaos outside her locked room. She sat curled in the corner, hollow-eyed, when the door burst open. A uniformed officer rushed to her side. "You're safe now." Safe. The word felt foreign, like something that belonged to another life. Ace tried to run. There was a hidden tunnel beneath the house, a last-ditch escape route, but he never made it far. They tackled him in the dirt, his expensive suit stained, his mouth twisted in a snarl. He was dragged away in cuffs, his empire dismantled. But for Naomi and the 5 other girls they pulled from that house, the nightmare didn't end with his arrest. The scars, the memories, those couldn't be erased. They would carry them forever. The world knew Naomi Carter's name now. News anchors repeated it over and over, flashing her face across screens alongside headlines that sent chills through the nation. The Instagram modeling trap, how one teen barely escaped. Predator posing as talent scout exposed in FBI sting. Sex trafficking in the digital age. Are your children safe? The story spread like wildfire. The glamorous photos Naomi once posted, full of dreams and ambition, were now juxtaposed with haunting images from the FBI raid. Her gaunt face, swollen lips, the hollow stare of a girl who had seen too much. But it wasn't just about her. As reporters dug deeper, the scale of Malik Ace Redding's operation unraveled like a horror story. His name was tied to disappearances stretching back nearly a decade. His network was vast, his web of deception terrifyingly sophisticated. Dozens of girls, some still missing, some confirmed dead. His talent agency had been nothing more than bait, and social media had been his hunting ground. The outrage was immediate. Parents flooded talk shows, demanding justice. Activists called for social media platforms to do more to stop predators like Ace from operating in plain sight. Lawmakers scrambled to propose stricter regulations for online recruitment. Then came the audio. Leaked voice recordings from the night of the raid sent shockwaves through the country. In one clip, Nyamai's voice cracked with terror as she pleaded, "Please, just let me go. Please." In another, Ace's chilling response, "You're already gone." Forensic evidence painted an even grimmer picture. Naomi had been days away from being sold overseas. Her captors had passports, flight itineraries, and encrypted transactions proving she was never meant to be found. The conversation turned global. How had this happened? How many more victims were still out there? Could social media ever be safe for young girls chasing dreams? There were no easy answers. But one truth remained undeniable. Naomi Carter had survived. And now the world had no choice but to listen. Malik Ace Redding sat expressionless in the courtroom, dressed in an orange jumpsuit. His once arrogant demeanor now hollow. Cameras flashed as the judge read out the charges. Human trafficking, sexual exploitation, kidnapping, conspiracy, and a dozen other crimes that barely scratched the surface of his depravity. The evidence was damning. The prosecution laid it all bare. Videos recovered from Ace's encrypted files, contracts forcing victims into silence, digital footprints proving his deep ties to the dark web. A forensic analyst testified how Ace had meticulously scrubbed his online presence each time a girl disappeared, erasing them like they had never existed. Then came the testimonies. One by one, survivors took the stand, their voices trembling but resolute. Some wept as they described the nightmare Ace had trapped them in, the drugs, the violence, the way he made them feel like escape was impossible. Others stared at him down, refusing to let him look away from what he had done. Naomi sat in the front row, her mother gripping her hands so tightly their fingers turned white. Ace showed no remorse. The defense tried to argue he was merely a recruiter, that he wasn't responsible for what happened to the girls after they were signed. The jury didn't buy it. After weeks of gut-wrenching testimony, it took less than 3 hours for a verdict. Guilty. When the judge handed down the sentence, life without parole, gasps rippled through the courtroom. Ace barely flinched. His empire had crumbled, his operation dismantled, and the power he once wielded over young, hopeful girls was gone forever. His accomplices weren't spared either. The drivers, enforcers, and digital architects who had helped him build his trafficking ring received 10 years in prison each. Some broke down, begging for leniency. They got none. Outside, the world watched. Reporters swarmed the courthouse, flashing cameras capturing every tear-streaked face, every sigh of relief. Activists called it a landmark case in the fight against human trafficking. Lawmakers vowed to tighten internet safety laws, social media platforms promised stronger security measures, and parents held their children a little closer that night. But for Naomi, justice was just the beginning. The scars Ace left behind, both visible and invisible, would take years to heal. The nightmares wouldn't disappear overnight. But she had survived. And now she had a voice. One that the world was finally listening to. Predators don't lurk in the shadows anymore. They live in the glow of our screens, hiding behind carefully curated profiles, blue check marks, and promises that seem too good to be true. Malik Ace Redding knew exactly what his victims wanted to hear. He studied their aspirations, their desperation, their willingness to believe that success was just one opportunity away. Naomi Carter's story isn't just about one girl's nightmare. It's about the thousands of young people who are lured in the same way every year. It's about an industry that thrives on beauty and ambition but too often looks the other way when those same dreams are weaponized. It's about a system that allows predators to build empires out of broken lives. The scariest part? Ace was caught. But how many more are still out there? Somewhere right now, another girl is staring at a DM from a scout, her heart racing with excitement. Somewhere, another mother is telling herself that the opportunity must be real because it looks so professional. Somewhere, Another victim is sitting in a windowless room, realizing too late that she was never meant to make it out. So what needs to change? How do we stop this from happening again? Do social media platforms bear responsibility for giving predators a free playground? Should the fashion industry do more to protect young talent? Or does it start with education, teaching young people the warning signs before it's too late? One thing is certain. As long as there are dreams, there will be those who exploit them. If this case shook you, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more terrifying cases that expose the darkest realities of crime and deception. And remember, on the internet, not everything that glitters is gold.